Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Mike Reed here, and I'm back again with yet another toy review for you guys. So today, I got a rather large review for you guys. Today, we will be taking a look at Beyblade Burst Pro Series Elite Champions Pro Set. The fact that this is actually on my desk is surprising because my desk is relatively small. And the fact that this colossal box can actually fit is kind of impressive. So, real quick, guys, we're just going to quickly go over the box here so that way we can actually get the goods in this. So right there, as you can see, a Beyblade Burst Pro Series Elite Champions Pro Set. Now, this is the new starter set that they're releasing for Pro Series. As you can see, on the upper left, we have Chozy Valkyrie right there. I have no idea why Hasbro has this weird affinity for Chozy all of a sudden, or Turbo, as they called it in their toy line. So that's rather interesting that they're just doing yet another set of Chozy bays. Not only that, but they're based on some Japanese rare recolors. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But anyway, here is the Chozy Valkyrie right there, and then we have Chozy Achilles right there. Now, this is the one that most drew my eye to this set, because this one is probably one of my favorites of the two in terms of what it's based on. But I'll talk about that more in a minute. So the Champions Pro set, we have the bays clashing right there, and we got the new stadium. I will be showing you guys the stadium as we move along the tour review here. So, flipping to the back of this colossal box, we have the Beyblade Burst Pro Series logo right there, and we have Chozy Valkyrie, or Valtryek. And then we have the parts right there. Of course, it does have the die-cast metal. It does have the gimmick with the Chozy wings. And it comes with Zenith and Destroy. Now, for eagle-eyed viewers of the driver, you will notice that it is in the design of the critically acclaimed, at least by the fandom anyway, the Dash drivers that were introduced in the Chozy generation, aka Generation 3. So, kind of curious here as to, why that's there, because let's just say it's kind of scamish in nature how they did that, but we'll talk about that more in a moment. So, moving on to Chozy Achilles here, he is a stamina type. We have the Achilles layer right there, again, die-cast metal. We have the disc, and then we have the driver, which is Absorb. So that's really nice. So we're finally getting a Takara accurate Hasbro rendition of Absorb, which is really cool. And of course, it does have the gimmicks just like the original Pro Series release of this bay. So we have all the stats and all that gubbins down there. We have the include Space Stadium stuff right there, instruction sheets, all that good stuff. It comes with launchers and everything. So there we go. Let's move that out of the way. And let's move swiftly along to the stadium, which looks like this. And the stadium is fairly large, as you guys can see. It is based off of the Takara Tomy version, which I'm actually going to have to move down to my floor to actually show you guys a comparison because of how big this thing is. So, as you guys can see, we do have 4 pockets in each of the corners, which the bays can get knocked into when they're battling. And then we have this center bowl, which does have a bit of dust on there. I have no idea how that got on there already, even though I just got it out of the box. But there you go. So that's the stadium. Now again, moving to my floor real quick. For comparison, there it is with the Takara Tomy stadium right there. So you guys can see how those two look together. Very, very similar. So moving back to the table, and yes, we are using the turntable for this review. So let me get everything in frame real quick. There we go. Let's move swiftly on to the launchers. So here's the launchers for both bays. Right there. So let me give the turntable a little spin. And as you guys can see, fairly nice launchers. They're pretty much the exact same as the Takara Tomy releases, just not with, but just with Hasbro's little QR codes there. There we go. So there you go. Those are the launchers. And again, just to show how the launchers work, you basically put your bay on there, and then you pull the rip cord, and that will launch the Beyblade. So there you go. Those are the launchers. Now let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this set, which of course is the Beyblades themselves. And let's get swiftly on with the first Beyblade included in the set, which is Chozy Valkyrie. So let's start off by looking at the layer, of course. which is Cho Z Valkyrie. And again, it looks absolutely stunning. I love the colors they use on this with the red and the yellow for the eyes and the details and the metal. This is absolutely gorgeous. Now again, this is based on a Japanese, I believe it was a random booster prize bay that had this color to this layer. I can't remember the specifics of which random booster that it was, because I don't really pay much attention to the random boosters because they're random. And obviously they're very, very expensive little propositions if you want to get into random boosters for Beyblade, because trust me, getting the prize bays is very, very difficult. But still, there's one of the few prize bays you could get in a random booster, and I really like that the Hasbro is doing more references to those recolors. And again, looks absolutely gorgeous. So, and again, it does have the metal. It has the gimmick. Now, what's cool about this is that the wings are actually in this cool aquamarine color. I won't be able to show the gimmick here just because of the nature of the gimmick. I don't want to break the darn thing. But just take my word for it when I say that the wings come out and they look amazing when they're activated. And they're actually fairly tricky to activate, so that's kind of interesting. But there you go. So that is Cho Z Valkyrie right there. Next, we'll take a look at the disc, which is Zenith. Now, Zenith is basically the exact same as the Takara Tomy release, where it does have the metal, it has the plastic, and it has the rubber. So the gimmick with that is that the rubber, when lined up correctly with the Cho Z Valkyrie layer, can bolster its attack power by... Basically, how the rubber works is that it acts as, it creates an area of friction where when the Beyblade hits, the rubber will sort of grip onto the other bay and sort of make it start clicking a lot more, thus making it more prone to bursts. So, and it actually does work in practice. Not all the time, but it does work. So I'll give it to them. They actually did good on this one. And as you guys can see, there is a little reference to Cho Z on this disc, because it actually has the Cho Z sort of stylized logo built into the metal, which I thought was a really cool gimmick that for some reason almost nobody in the Beyblade community actually pointed out. And so it's weird that I feel like I'm just the only one that's pointing that out, that the Cho Z logo's right there on all three of the blades there, which I think is a really cool little reference there. But there you go. So for a quick comparison, we are going to compare this to the original Cho Z Valkyrie disc, so you guys can see the differences between the two parts. As you can see, the rubber is not present on this one, where on this one the rubber is present. Pretty straightforward. And then next we will compare this to the Japanese Cho Z Valkyrie's Zenith disc, which again, they're pretty much the exact same. I have heard from other reviewers that the red on this one is a slightly darker red than this one. Or I've also heard others that say this is a slightly lighter red compared to this one. But for me, it's kind of hard to tell as they look very, very similar, which is the idea. They try to mimic the Takara designs and gimmicks of the parts. That's the whole point of Pro Series, is to address that one glaring issue for the recent years of Beyblade for Hasbro, is to get it more accurate to the Japanese release and get all the gimmicks correct and everything. But there you go. So there is Zenith. And then lastly, we get the driver, which is Destroy Dash, ? So the reason why I say that is because when this first came out, when pictures first got leaked of this set, people were going crazy because everybody thought that Hasbro was finally going to do dash drivers in their toy line. Now, for those who don't know what the dash drivers were like, they still make them to this day. They still keep making them, not in as much quantity as they did back in the early days of their introduction, but still they do make them. Still, and of course they've done all kinds of new drivers now, like I think they do like metal drivers where this little cap part is like metal now. It's kind of weird. But anyway, the dash drivers, the original sort of gimmickiness of the drivers, was that basically the whole gimmick was pretty straightforward. Is that each driver that was a dash driver would show up with a red cap like this, and the spring would be tougher, and when you look through the plastic, or the polycarbonate plastic, you could see a bright gold spring inside, letting you know, also being another visual indicator that this is a dash driver. And dash drivers are extremely, extremely tough to burst because, again, those springs are very, very tough. Thankfully, they're not tough enough to cause any breakage issues, but still, they're very, very tough and very, very, very good for competitive. So that's something to note. On this one, though, they kind of scammed us. Here's why. Because there's a red cap here, right, indicating a dash driver. But if you look on the inside, you can see there is a silver spring in there. So that kind of makes me wonder, did Hasbro scam us? Did they scam us out of a dash driver? Hasbro, that's despicable. How could you? You hyped us up with a dash driver, and then you just release it as just a regular driver, just with the cap that makes an illusion that it's a dash driver? I'm sorry, Hasbro, but that's pretty scummy of you to release something like this that looks like a dash driver, but isn't. I mean, I can kind of understand why they didn't, because, of course, with Hasbro, they're probably worried about breakage issues, so I can understand it from that standpoint. But from an accuracy standpoint, that's just despicable. At least in my opinion, that's a very, very despicable thing to do. But there you go. So once we put the bay all together, we will have our Chozy Valkyrie all together, and he does look quite nice. So let me actually get him in this proper configuration right there. And I should note that the teeth are fairly tight on this bay, which is good because that means that it will be able to battle for longer and we won't have to worry about any sort of breakage issues, which is wonderful. So for quick comparisons, we're going to start off with Chozy Valkyrie. So that way you guys can see how those two look together. And again, these are very, very nice looking bays. Now, as you can see, the noticeable difference between this one and that one is that obviously the details are much more, saturated. They're not as high quality. And there's no metal. No metal whatsoever. The gimmick is still intact with the Chozy wings, but still, Chozy Valkyrie, or Turbo Valkyrie, as I called it for this one on the left here. Let me just say, if you haven't seen the original review of it, I was extremely disappointed by this release because I really thought that they were going to add metal on it, give it the whole gimmicks, everything, but nope. They just gave it the gimmicks, but they didn't include the major ones that actually made the Japanese release very, very good and actually broken at the time of its release. Nowadays, it's outclassed because, of course, we have sparking and stuff like that now that completely outclasses them. But still, for a time, Chozy Valkyrie was quite the beast in battle. It's just a shame that Hasbro decided, nope, instead of being a beast in battle, we're gonna make him super weak. So, thanks, Hasbro. Thanks for nothing. But there you go. So you have that. For the next comparison, we're gonna bring in the Takara Tomy Chozy Valkyrie, so that way you guys can see how those two look together. And as you guys can see, I'm still learning how to work the turntable, but yeah, guys, if you guys are enjoying the turntable, please let me know in the comments if you guys are enjoying this thing, because trust me, this is making these comparison segments a lot easier. But yeah, as you guys can see, they're pretty much identical, the Hasbro and Japanese releases. Although, of course, there are some major differences with them, of course, with one having a not dash driver and, and the fact that it's made by Hasbro, but still, they're fairly identical. So, good job, Hasbro, for actually getting the details pretty much identical to Takara Tomy's release. So, kudos to them for that. But there we go. So that is the Valkyrie segment done. So as soon as I can get this guy's sticker on right, because for some reason his sticker's starting to peel off already. I haven't even got him out of the box for like 10 minutes and already he's coming apart. Come on. So let me just get the sticker on a little bit better. There we go. Okay. I think that's yeah, okay, that's definitely more secure now. I just didn't have it pushed down all the way, so it would actually stick, but there we go. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get on to the next Beyblade in the set, which is Chozy Achilles. So let's start off with his layer. If I can actually get him apart. There we go. Starting with Chozy Achilles. And honestly, guys, this is my favorite version of Achilles ever. Ever. Right next to the original, this is the second best. I love this recolor of Achilles. Now, for those who don't know what this is based on, this is based on a rare baguette you could get for Achilles. So The thing is that with the introduction of Cho-Z, and they did this a lot. They did this back in the dual layer system, but not nearly as much, as pretty much they're not really talked about, except in like small circles, I would say. But for Cho-Z, for the release of Achilles, they were doing a campaign where every release of Cho-Z Achilles, the starter set that you could get, you could have a very small chance of getting this rare black version in your box. Of course, I didn't get a black version, sadly. But now Hasbro has made that more accessible by making their version on that very same black release. Of course, if you want to get the Japanese version of it, good luck. Because you're probably going to need to shell out a mortgage just to be able to get a hold of one. Because that's how valuable it is. But still, I'm glad that Hasbro at least did their version on this release, and it just looks beautiful. I love the details on this. Again, out of all of the Cho-Z Achilles releases, let alone all of the Cho-Z Awakening Layer System bays, this one probably got the coolest recolor of all of them. This is one of the best, if not the best, out of all of them. And it is absolutely gorgeous. Now you guys can see the Cho-Z wings are red instead of blue on the original. So, again, I can't show the gimmick here on camera just because of, worrying about breakage issues and stuff like that. But take my word for it, the wings do come out. They are red, and they look really cool when they're activated. So, there you go. So that is the layer right there. Next, we get the disc, which is 1-. Now, 1- originally came on Buster Excalibur in that same generation. And it's pretty nice. So, not much to really say on this one, except that it's nice that we get to see this part again, but also, why though? Why not, I don't know, 0 dimension? But, here we are. There's 1-, and then lastly, we get the Hasbro more accurate version of Absorb. So Absorb originally came on Geist Fafnir, and I'm pretty happy with this one for Hasbro. So if you guys don't remember the gimmick is that the cone tip here is semi-sharp, I would say, and that allows it to have really good stamina, meaning that it will stay pretty much in the middle at all times, and it's fairly difficult to knock out. Not impossible, but fairly difficult to get them out of the stadium just by hitting them really hard. But next here we actually have the plate, and this is where the main gimmick comes in. So when this Beyblade gets hit, and it gets hit on an angle at least, the spring will compress, and the little teeth on the disc will line up with the disc with the little spikes up above it on the little base up here. And then that will create this sort of attack mode. So now the tip will sort of retract in so that the outer flat part can make contact with the stadium, thus making it move more aggressively. So it's a pretty cool gimmick. I quite like it. And of course the spring can also help in absorbing attacks, as it'll just move in and out like that, sort of absorbing the shock of incoming attacks. So that's a nice plus as well with the driver. So once we put the driver, disc, and layer together, we will have our Cho-Z Achilles ready to go here. And again, absolutely gorgeous looking Beyblade. Excuse me, I had to burp right there. How nasty of me to do that on video. But there we go. So there is Cho-Z Achilles. Now for a quick comparison, let's bring in the original Hasbro Turbo Achilles. And as you guys can see, if I can actually rotate it the right way, there are some significant differences with the two. First of which being that this one here on the right has less details. He does not have the metal. And his Turbo Awakening, aka the Cho-Z Awakening gimmick, is garbage on that release. It's the truth. It's absolutely garbage. Like, I tried it out for the first time with my original copy, which, as you guys may know from that review, actually came with a part missing somehow. I have no idea how, but I guess they never finished it in production of that particular copy. But still, it's absolute garbage. You barely hit the Cho-Z wings on the Hasbro Turbo release right there, and it just falls right in. It's ridiculous because the car release, you have to really hit it to get those Cho-Z wings to knock back in. during battle. Of course, in hand, it's very, very easy to do. But in Bay battles, those wings do wonders for the combo. So, and the metal is completely stripped on that release, which is to be expected because, of course, with Turbo, they stopped doing the Takara accuracy for the most part and started kind of doing their own thing. And it makes sense because Toys R Us recently closed at that time, and I guess Hasbro felt that we don't really need to put that much effort into Beyblade anymore, so we're just going to do our own thing. We're going to do the Turbo Slingshot, and everybody's going to go crazy about it. Everybody hated it, including me. But I still bought it because, of course, me being a loyal customer and everything, gotta support Hasbro, even through the dark ages that were Cho-Z through Hypersphere. But thankfully, with Surge Speedstorm, they seem to be leaning more towards going back to that sort of Takara accuracy philosophy that they were doing for a long time up until Beyblade Burst Evolution in 2017. So, thanks Hasbro for listening to us and finally giving us the Takara accuracy that we've all been seeking. But moving away from that, and as soon as I can get these guys to rotate back into the proper position, come on. There we go. Next, we will bring in the recolor version of Cho-Z Achilles to compare it to. There we go. So as you guys can see, same flaws as the original, just now it has a different coat of paint on it. Which I did say that this one right here was actually my favorite recolor for Hasbro at least. But now, forget it. This one obviously is my new favorite. And as I keep saying, I love that black recolor. Because again, it is based on a very, very hard to come by Japanese version. So, thanks Hasbro for doing that for us. For throwing us a bone here. So there's that. And next we will bring in the Takara Tomy Cho-Z Achilles, which as you guys can see is fairly worn down, but that's just because I was using it a lot back in its prime, because it was the only Achilles copy I had at the time, before I got the slew of other copies that I got now. But still, for what they are, they're actually fairly, for what it is, Cho-Z Achilles was probably, don't get me wrong, he's a strong Beyblade for his time in my collection, and for the time it was released, he was very, very powerful. But against the other three Cho-Z Awakening Bays, Cho-Z Spriggan, well, the other two, Cho-Z Spriggan and Cho-Z Valkyrie, they were just, Achilles just kind of lagged behind. It's really strange because, you know, when this got released, I thought this thing was going to be an absolute beast. I thought it was going to just destroy the other two left or right, but no, you'd be surprised. He's actually the weakest of the Cho-Z Bays. Of course, Valkyrie being the strongest because, main character, so he has to be powerful or whatever. So, thanks to Tomy. Really appreciate it. But anyway, there you go. So, there is that. And of course, I stopped that at the worst possible time. And lastly, let's bring in the Pro Series, the original release of Cho-Z Achilles for the Pro Series. And again, very, very nice stuff, these two. And definitely, if I were to suggest one to pick up first, if you want to get into Pro Series, I would highly recommend the Cho-Z Bays. And I would highly recommend getting the Pro Series Stadium to start with. Not just because it's a stadium and you get a new stadium and everything, but just, to me, there's a lot more value in the set, because you get two nice rare recolors with some random parts, and, you know, and especially if you have the Takara or the original Pro Series release of Cho-Z Achilles, which is on the the right there. If you have that, you can just easily swap over the parts and then make the original combo. So that works too. But as soon as this thing starts turning, we're going to, there we go, stop the thing right there. And with that, guys, I'm going to end today's review right there. So that has been the review of Beyblade Burst Pro Series the Elite Champions Pro Set. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe if you're new, and ring that notification bell so that way you guys get notified for all my uploads. Later, Read Squad, and have a good one.